We welcome you back live to the Blue Up Early with us on Bronco Roundup Game Day. Boise State Director of Athletics, Jeramiah Dickey. I mean, it looks good this early, I guess. A little early maybe, but how do you feel about it?
It's a little early, but, you know, not as much for us. I mean, obviously game days are game days, and I know my staff got here really early this morning, and I'm really grateful. I feel a little bad for the fans. I know that we like to tailgate. We have a great tailgating community, and, you know, but I'm really proud of Bronco Nation. We sold this game out, what, a couple months ago, and so I have faith that they're going to show up and be loud, and we have an opportunity today.
You know, first off, happy Thanksgiving. I kind of glossed over that. Fun to have the family around and everybody in town. I know I have some family and friends in town, and they're going to be at the game today as well. But, you know, you look at this being senior day, right?
Yeah.
And this is just kind of a special group of seniors. It's funny, ever since this program transitioned up to the FBS level, there might not be a group of seniors that has been through more. They've been through COVID. They've been through multiple head coaching changes at times. What does this senior class mean to you, especially, you know, about a year ago when you were kind of leaning on them to help guide you through some pretty rocky times?
No, 100%, and happy Thanksgiving. You know, this senior class, it means a lot to me, and today's going to be tough. I love these guys and what they've been through, 3 coaching changes, COVID, everything that you've mentioned. I don't know if you could ask for a greater group. And last year I did depend on them quite a bit, and not saying it was their decision, but it is important to understand the will of your team and where their heads are at. And, you know, and I look at who they are, and obviously Bronco Nation gets to see them more on the field of play. I see them off, and I don't have favorites today. I love all our student athletes, and it's gonna be hard for me, but I'm really proud of them.
Yeah, I guess we should say they've also gone through a switch at AD as well, for that matter.
That's true. You know, JD, it's been a ton of fun, the off-season news, the Pac-12 realignment. This is going to be a conference game in just 2 years. How excited are you to see the first taste of Oregon State on the blue ahead of what should be a fun rivalry for years to come?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, you think about a few years ago, and I know we played them, and it was not a great outcome, but, you know, these were the type of games that we were striving to get on the blue. And now to be in the same conference with them and to have those opportunities ahead of us and what they're investing, I think very highly of their athletic director. I've said this all along. I wanted to align with like institutions that were innovative with their approach and that wanted more than they had. And I feel like we have that. So I hope Bronco Nation enjoys it. I hope the Beavers fan base enjoys it. I think it's a really cool experience. We have a lot of alums in town for them. And so I would expect a good contingent, and I know this game's important today for them in terms of bowl eligibility.
I know you still have a great working relationship with the Mountain West, and I have so much respect for the people over there, but this is kind of a glimpse into the future of what we will see in the Pac-12. Any update there on how things go, and what is your relationship like with Oregon State's AD, who has really helped the conference survive prior to actually building it back up with the addition of schools like Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and the other schools out of the Mountain West?
Yeah, obviously Oregon State, he's been there a while, and Washington State's gone through an AD change, and so he very much took a leadership role throughout this process. And, you know, the number of Zooms that we're on, you know, together and just throwing, you know, ideas back and forth, and, you know, it takes a team, and that's not just here in our own department. It's not just with the university, the community, but it's also with those conference partners. I'm a competitor, look, and I want to beat him, you know, and he wants to beat me. But at the end of the day, we're locked arms. We're all navigating a lot of the same nonsense and chaos, and, you know, and just trying to better ourselves and our situations and do the best we possibly can for the fan bases that we represent. And so he's an unbelievable AD. He's been an AD at a number of places, and I used to, you know, try to connect with him, you know, at various points just because I watched his career, and so it's really cool to be on the same sideline with him.
I know you didn't have enough meetings, so I'm glad we could add another conference to get you a few more of those meetings.
That's right.
What is the latest, Jeremiah, in terms of, you know, still the Pac-12 needs to add a school in the future to make sure that you guys stabilize, and then obviously the TV negotiation rights are still out there. So what is kind of next, and what are you guys monitoring at this point in time?
So you've seen most recently we've hired Octagon, the Pac-12 has, and really great to bring them on board. They're an international firm and have a lot of street cred, and so really excited about what they're bringing to the table. You know, ultimately, we are, it's plan the work the plan. We are following our process, and we're not necessarily in a rush to add another team right now or two, and whatever that ends up being. There's still a lot of opportunity out there, and I know I get. I can only speak for myself. I get various calls from athletic directors around the country, and so I know there's interest. And with the season we're having, and overall, with all the sports that are represented, I think the future is very bright, and I think people are really excited about that Pac-12 brand. And I know I've seen it with our fan base, and we're going to continue to, to lock in on next steps. And I will know more going into the spring. These processes don't, they're not quick processes, right? We have to be strategic through this and be consistent with our message, and I'm really grateful for our commissioner in the Pac-12 and what she's doing, and the future's bright.
Jeremiah, we appreciate it. Stay warm out here. It's going to be a fun one, and thank goodness we get a bonus one next weekend on the Blue for the Mountain West Conference Championship game. As always, we appreciate you joining us on Bronco Roundup Game Day.
Thank you, guys. Go Broncos.
Jeramiah Dickey continues to do a phenomenal job at Boise State. He has this program